One question, just one. Imagine two paths stand in front of you. One path is guaranteed, safe, secure, comfortable. The other path is risky, but walking it could get you everything you've ever dreamed of. So which path would you choose? Most people say the second one, but they do the first one. And that gap is exactly what keeps some people average for their entire lives. Today I'm going to tell you a secret that the biggest researchers in psychology discovered. Running from risk isn't a choice, it's your brain's programming. And until you understand that programming, you're holding yourself back without even knowing it. First, think about this. Why do 95% of people avoid risk? Are they lazy? No. Are they unintelligent? No. Are they cowards? Absolutely not. These people are completely normal, and being normal is exactly the problem, because our brain's default setting is to avoid risk. It's an evolutionary gift that has become a curse in today's world. Today I'll tell you the whole story of that curse, and how to break out of it. Hassan was a 28-year-old software engineer. Good job, good salary, good life. But every night before falling asleep, one thought kept coming back. This isn't my life. He wanted to build his own startup. For 3 years he'd had the idea, for 3 years he'd had the plan, for 3 years he researched every weekend. But he never actually did anything. Why? Every time a new excuse showed up. The market isn't right yet. I don't have the capital yet. It's not the right time yet. He was lying to himself. And the name of that lie is loss aversion. Hassan wasn't alone. You know that somewhere inside you, there's a bit of Hassan too. And today we're going to look at that directly. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, spent a huge part of his life on one question: how do humans actually make decisions? And what he discovered changed the way the world thinks. He proved that humans aren't rational. We think we reason with logic, but in reality we think through emotion, through biases, and through invisible mental shortcuts that evolved thousands of years ago. And among all of these, the biggest one is loss aversion, meaning that losing something hurts a human being roughly twice as much as gaining the same thing brings pleasure. So if you're given 1,000 rupees, the joy you feel, if that same 1,000 rupees is taken away, the pain you feel will be about twice as strong as that joy. This isn't opinion, it's research, proven through repeated experiments. And because of this one rule, we spend our entire lives making decisions that protect whatever we already have, whether that's a good job, a comfortable relationship, or a mediocre life. We are more afraid of giving up the old to gain the new than we are drawn to the new itself. And that fear is what keeps us stuck exactly where we are. Zain was a 35-year-old teacher. He'd loved acting since childhood. He did plays in college, people praised him, and he himself felt this was his thing. But after graduation, he had to make the big decision: pursue acting or take the safe job. He took the safe job. Why? Because in his mind, he ran a calculation. If acting doesn't work out, I'll lose everything. The job, the stability, my family's expectations, all of it. And the fear of that potential loss was so large that the potential gain became completely invisible. Today, Zain is 35, and every day he lives a life that isn't his. Loss aversion stole his real life from him, and he let it go himself. Now pause for a second and listen, because this isn't just about them. There's a bit of Zain in your life too. Some dream you've put up on a shelf, some decision you keep postponing, some path you've closed off yourself by saying, not the right time yet. That shelf, that postponement, that closed door, these are all signs of loss aversion. And until you name it, it will keep controlling you. Now let me tell you something else that research has proven, something very few people know about. It's called regret asymmetry. It means that when we take a risk and fail, the pain fades with time. We find reasons for the failure, we learn, we move on. But when we don't take a risk, when we let an opportunity slip by, that regret only grows with time. Most people, at the end of their lives, don't say, I wish I hadn't done that. They say, I wish I had done what I actually wanted to do. Think about the people around you who are older than you, people in their 50s, 60s, and ask them what they regret. I can guarantee that most of their answers will be about things they didn't do, the business they never started, the country they never visited, the person they never told they liked. Mentions of failures will be rare. Mentions of missed chances will be everywhere. That's the conclusion of the research, and it's the conclusion of life too. So if you're going to have regret either way, let it be the regret of having tried, not the regret of having missed out. Now let's move to the next concept, without which everything else stays incomplete. Our brain has two systems, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, instinctive. It's the system that yanks you back the instant you see a snake. It's the system that generates fear, sends danger signals, and keeps you safe. System 2 is slow, logical, deliberate, analytical. It calculates, makes plans, thinks long-term. The problem is, whenever we think about a risk, quitting a job, investing, starting a new business, telling someone how we feel, System 1 fires first, and it only says one thing. Danger. Because uncertain equals unknown, and unknown equals potentially harmful. In our ancestors' time, this was accurate. In the jungle, the unknown really was dangerous. But today, unknown simply means the outcome isn't guaranteed. System 1 doesn't know that difference. It still sends the danger signal. And until System 2 gets engaged, we act on that danger signal, avoid the risk, and lock ourselves into the safe zone. Kamran had a good corporate job with a solid salary. He spotted a real estate investment opportunity, did the research, ran the numbers. Everything looked right. But when it came time to actually decide, his chest tightened, his hands went cold. In that moment, he kept thinking, what if I lose it? What if it goes wrong? What if it all sinks? That was all System 1. Danger, danger, danger. He didn't invest. 4 years later, that property is worth 3 times as much. Kamran knows exactly what he gave up. But in that moment, System 1 was so loud that System 2 never even got heard. So what do? Can we hack our own brain? Yes. And the method is surprisingly simple, though most people don't take it seriously because it doesn't feel dramatic. This technique is called fear setting. Popularized by Tim Ferriss, himself a massive risk taker. Here's how it works. Whenever you're facing a risk, write down 3 things on a page. First, what's the worst-case scenario in full detail? If I do this and it all goes wrong, exactly what happens? I lose the job, I lose money, what will people say? Write it all down. And notice, when you put it into words, the fear that felt enormous gets smaller, because what's unnamed feels terrifying, but what's named feels manageable. Second, even if the worst case happens, what can I do about it? Is it recoverable? In most cases, the answer is yes. Lost the job? I'll find another one. Lost the money? I can earn it again. Relationship ended? Time heals it. Permanent, unrecoverable damage happens in very few cases, but it feels like it will happen in all of them. That feeling is a lie, and fear setting exposes that lie. Third, if I don't take this risk, what will my life look like 5 years from now? This is the most powerful question of all, because it shows you the life of the people who didn't take the leap. And that picture is often far more painful than the worst case you imagined from taking the risk. Ali was a marketing professional who wanted to open his own agency for 2 years. When he tried fear setting, something shifted. He wrote the worst case. The agency fails within 6 months, all the money is gone, he has to find a job again. Then he asked, is this recoverable? Yes, he had the skills, the connections, the experience. He could find work. Then he asked, if I'm still in the same job 5 years from now, agency never started, how will that feel? That question shook him from the inside. 3 days later, he handed in his resignation. 18 months later, his agency was running profitably. That worst case never came, but neither did he let go of that 5-year picture. Now let's get to a concept that adds a whole new depth to this picture, and I want you to listen very closely. It's called status quo bias. It's a cousin of loss aversion, but slightly different. Loss aversion says, I can't lose anything. Status quo bias says, whatever exists right now must be fine, whether it actually is or not. Psychologists have proven that people prefer the default option simply because it's the default. In one experiment, people stayed in the same pension plan they were already in, even when another plan was financially better. Why? Because switching takes effort, and the brain wants to avoid effort. This is exactly what we do in our own lives. We stay in the relationship we're in, even if it's toxic. We stay in the job we're in, even if it's boring. We stay in the city we're in, even if it doesn't match our dreams. We think we're happy, but really, we're just comfortable. And comfortable and happy are two different things. Comfortable is what's safe. Happy is what's meaningful. And most people spend their entire lives staying comfortable, never getting around to meaningful. Faisal had a friend named Bilal. Bilal's job was boring. 7 years at the same company, same desk, same routine. Every day at lunch he'd say, "I want to do something new." Every evening he'd go home, watch Netflix and fall asleep. He never did anything, because doing something meant quitting the job. And quitting the job was risky, and risky meant disturbing the status quo. In 7 years, he never seriously tried once. Then, 7 years in, his company had layoffs. Bilal lost his job. And what happened? He finally went looking for new work, and within 3 months, he joined a company where now he goes to work happy every morning. That unwanted shock did what 7 comfortable years never could. Sometimes life breaks the status quo for you, but by then, it's often too late. And here I want to add one more thing that's very important. Listen closely, because this might be happening to you too. It's called social risk aversion. It means we also avoid risk because we're afraid of what people will say. It's a social version of loss aversion. If I try this and fail, people will laugh. People will say, "I told you so." People will think I'm foolish. And this fear, the fear of social judgment, is often even more powerful than the fear of financial loss. Haris was a young graphic designer with a solid freelance income. He started building a SaaS product, a design tool, worked on it for 4 months. A week before launch, he stopped. Why? Because he'd told his cousins about it, and they said the idea was weak. A junior colleague told him the market was already crowded. And he decided that if he launched and it failed, everyone would say, "Told you so." He never launched. 8 months later, someone else brought an almost identical tool to market, and it succeeded. Haris still knows to this day that product was his, but he gave someone else's opinion more weight than his own dream. Social risk aversion is so dangerous precisely because it's invisible. We never tell ourselves, "I'm afraid of people." We tell ourselves, "The idea isn't ready yet. The market isn't right. The timing is off." But if you look inside honestly, there's usually a face whose approval you were chasing. And that face is quietly steering the decisions of your entire life. And now, the point I deliberately saved for the very end, because it's the most important one. And without it, everything else stays incomplete. Being afraid of taking a risk and actually calculating the real cost of that risk are two completely different things. Most of us waste all our time being afraid and none of it actually calculating. Nassim Taleb, mathematician and risk expert, gave us a concept called asymmetric risk. It means some risks have a huge potential upside and a limited downside. Those are the risks worth taking. And some risks have a limited upside and a catastrophic downside. Those are the risks worth avoiding. But we don't make that distinction. We look at every risk through the same lens, and that lens is fear. Take someone starting a new business. Worst case, it fails, and he goes back to a job. Downside, a few wasted years, some lost money, some embarrassment. Upside, financial freedom, work that's his own, a meaningful life. That's asymmetric. The upside is many times bigger, but out of fear, we never even do that calculation. And then there's the person who stays in the same boring job for 20 years because it's safe. What's his risk? It looks like zero, but actually he's taking the biggest risk of all. He's giving his entire life away to someone else's dream. He's losing his time, and time is the one thing that never comes back. This is the risk that doesn't. Look. Like risk. The invisible risk. An invisible risk is more dangerous precisely because we don't even recognize it as risk. Hassan, who we started this story with, eventually read all of this himself. He did fear setting. He calculated the asymmetric risk. He thought through the worst case, having to find a job again. He pictured the 5-year version of himself. Same person, same regret. And then he took one small step. He didn't quit his job, but he found his first client, part-time, on weekends. In 6 months, that income matched his salary. In 8 months, he quit the job. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overnight. It was one step at a time. But those steps ended up bigger than his fear ever was. And this is what I want you to understand. Taking a risk doesn't mean one day you throw everything away and jump off a cliff. Taking a risk means identifying your fear, understanding it, and then taking one small step toward what you actually want. One small step. Just one. You have talent. You have ideas. You have potential. The thing holding you back isn't some outside force. It's 40,000-year-old mental wiring still running in your brain today. And now you know that wiring by name: loss aversion, regret asymmetry, system 1 and system 2, status quo bias, social risk aversion, asymmetric risk. These aren't just concepts, they're weapons. Whatever you can name, you can face. And whatever you can face, you can overcome. So starting today, do one thing. Just one. Take that one thing you keep postponing. That dream, that decision, that step, and run fear setting on it. Take a piece of paper, make 3 columns. Worst case, recovery plan, 5 years from now if I don't do it. Just start writing that. Nothing else, just that. And watch how small your fear becomes after that one exercise. 95% of people run from risk. But now, you're not part of that 95% anymore. Because now you know that running is programming, not choice. And programming can change. Starting today, yours starts changing. If you've watched all the way to here, you're already one of the 5% who actually want to understand. Anyone with the patience to sit through this has the patience for anything. Share this with someone who feels like they're not ready to take a risk. Maybe this is their first step. And tell me in the comments, what's the one risk you keep avoiding? I read every comment. See you in the next video. Until then, keep looking your fear in the eye.